The subject of tyre blankets has become a pain point for Formula 1 teams. As the FIA and Pirelli try to remove preheated tyres from the sport, the drivers are continuing to fight back against it. The new tyres were tested after the Spanish Grand Prix, and George Russell was very blunt in his assessment, saying they weren't safe for racing. But Pirelli thinks differently and have finally snapped at the criticism, putting the young British driver back in his place. Today we'll talk about how the Spanish tyre test went, what Pirelli thinks of George Russell, and whether the new tyres will be used or not in the future. So don't go anywhere. Pirelli's latest in-season test at Barcelona was one of the final chances for F1's tyre supplier to prove its right to go ahead with the planned 2024 tyre blanket ban. The 2 days of running were focused on 2024 tyre development and were conducted entirely without tyre warming blankets, with a total of 617 laps completed by Mercedes and Ferrari. Ferrari used its race drivers Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz, while Mercedes gave a first on-track outing to its reserve Mick Schumacher on the second day, having used George Russell on the first. It was the penultimate test of the potential 2024 tyres that would not use any form of tyre heating technology, with next month's Silverstone running in the week after the British Grand Prix, the last opportunity to try them. After that, Pirelli will make a recommendation to the FIA about whether it is possible to proceed, which the FIA then has the option to put a vote that required the support of 5 of the 10 teams to go through. If this does not happen, tyre blankets will continue to be used next year, on the same basis as in 2023. Tyres that produce good levels of grip straight out of the pits when at low pressure are the key objective for Pirelli, which was confident of having made steps in this direction. This is quite important for us. We're testing most of the compounds, and we have many variants of construction plus compounds, said Pirelli's chief F1 engineer Simone Barra ahead of the test. When we tested in Bahrain, we already had some good options which work properly out of the box, but there's still something to fine-tune to finalise our proposal. That's the aim of the test. We're working to have a structure that can help in generating temperature in the tyres. That's the aim of the structure in this case, to allow the compound to work properly. That means the structure could be less stiff and can increase the stiffness with the increase in pressure. I can't even begin to imagine the challenges with making a tyre that works at 10 degrees centigrade, all the way up to 110 degrees centigrade, which is how hot the current tyres can get. The properties of the compounds used in the tyre will alter a huge amount within that range, and making a tyre that is grippy within that range but won't just disintegrate at high temperatures will be an incredible achievement if Pirelli can get it right. At the moment though, some of the Formula 1 paddock are not convinced Pirelli have it right yet. Lewis Hamilton this year described the looming ban on tyre warmers as dangerous. I've tested the no blanket tyres and there's going to be an incident at some stage, so on a safety factor, I think it's the wrong decision. While Hamilton tried the tyres earlier in the year, it is his teammate George Russell who has strapped them on more recently. He says Formula 1 isn't in a position to race with slick tyres that do not use tyre warmers in 2024, having participated in Pirelli's most recent test of the development rubber. Despite the risk of the blanketless tyres not actually being used next year, Pirelli has continued to develop them and is confident the ban can still go ahead. Russell felt the tyres worked well in testing in Spain, but the fact that this was at a high track temperatures and immediately after a full GP weekend means he's still concerned about the characteristics in cool conditions, such as he experienced in earlier Pirelli tests. The significance of using a track that had just been used for a Grand Prix cannot be understated. The track surface in Barcelona will have been covered in rubber from the weekend, making it stickier for the testing runs George did, artificially improving the performance of the tyres. In hindsight, it probably wasn't tested in the right conditions at the right circuit, said Russell when asked whether the tyres he tested in Spain last week are raceable. If you go to a circuit such as Barcelona, which is quite an aggressive tarmac, it was 40 degrees track temperature, fully rubbered in from race weekend. The tyres were very sketchy coming out of the pit lane, but by about turn 5 on the outlap, it was at a respectable level. But if I compare that in contrast to the start of the year, when I did one run in Jerez in 10-degree track temperature, it was extremely difficult out of the pits. Getting temperature into their tyres has been a problem for Mercedes all season, so they will probably feel the effects of a cold tyre more than any other team. Race strategy in Formula 1 is heavily weighted around the time lost to pit stops. Where you come out after your pit stops is important, and being able to defend against a car close behind after a pit stop is also very important. If the new Pirelli tyres are bought in, teams will have to completely rethink how they run their race strategy. George was worried about how the tyres would fit with how the drivers currently race though. If I'm being honest, I don't think we as a sport are at a position to bring these tyres into a racing scenario. I will be very concerned for all the mechanics in the pit lane during a pit stop. I'd be very concerned for the outlap in a race in cold conditions. There will be crashes, I have no doubt about it. There's a lot of work and expense going into these tyres. I feel like that could be put elsewhere. Pirelli though insists his prototype tyres are raceable despite George raising safety concerns. Pirelli's F1 chief engineer, Simone Barra, described the Barcelona test as positive. "We consider the tyre raceable because otherwise we would not have proposed it for the evaluation," said Barra when asked about Russell's comments. "Yes, they are raceable. The first sector could be tricky, but apart from that, it's okay." Barra argues that drivers will just have to adjust their approach to the first part of the outlaps should the ban on tyre warmers go ahead next year. After all, that is what Formula 1 is all about. Constant technical rule changes provide new challenges for the teams and shake up the status quo of the grid. This change is just another technical rule alteration that the teams will have to deal with. Simone Barra is adamant that testing has shown no reasons to be concerned about safety, either for those working in the pit lane or those on track. Obviously, drivers need to think about the fact that not using the blankets is different than today, so they need to approach the outlap in a different way, said Barra. In cold conditions, it could be trickier to bring the tyres up to temperature, but it's just a matter of doing the first portion of the lap cautiously. In the first sector, generally, we can see much more difference compared to the other sectors, because already sectors 2 and 3 are in line with the lap times with the blankets, so it's just a matter of managing the first few corners. Like I said earlier, teams and drivers will have to adapt. It will change strategy significantly, adding seconds to the time lost on pit stops. But with any rule change, drivers have to adapt their style to suit the new cars, engines, or whatever else it is that is changing. Pirelli are clearly fed up with the drivers' criticisms because the drivers are refusing to adapt to a change that Formula 1 wants to happen. Simone Barra continued, "In terms of safety, I don't see from the data any specific risk. You need to change the way you're driving in the first lap. You have to adapt the driving style to protect the tyres because you can generate graining if you push too much in the first corners, and the tyres are not up to temperature. I respect driver opinion, that's for sure, but obviously there will be differences compared to the old product and the current tyre management." So what happens now? Does Formula 1 listen to the drivers, or do they go ahead anyway? The ban on tyre warmers is clearly a politically charged topic. Many drivers have criticised it, but it will all come down to how the teams vote. Should Pirelli and the FIA propose a vote on reactivating the on-hold ban for 2024, it will require just 5 teams to vote in favour. The Silverstone test next month will be the next step. The vote, which must happen before the end of July, could then decide if the tyre warmer ban goes ahead. If the teams vote for tyre warmers to be banned from 2024, then it wouldn't be the first time they'd gone against what the drivers want. Many drivers don't want sprint races, but the teams keep voting for more of them. Many drivers don't want as many races as we currently have, but the teams keep voting for them. Banning tyre warmers will save the teams a lot of money, so don't be surprised if, despite the driver complaints, tyre warmers are gone from the sport in 2024. Do you think the teams should listen to the drivers? Or is it time for the drivers to adapt to something that is just another technical rule change? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and until next time, drive safe and bye for now.